Have you ever caught your cat just staring at you? Not in a cute, I love you way. More like they're quietly evaluating you, the same way they'd evaluate a moving chair that occasionally feeds them. And then they do something even weirder. They rub against you, follow you room to room, sit near you like you're part of their territory, but never really behave like they understand you the way another human would. And that's where things get uncomfortable. Because most people assume cats see us as big humans, or maybe even slightly confusing cats. But what if that's completely wrong? What if your cat doesn't mentally place you in the category of human at all? Not because they don't recognize you, but because their entire system of understanding the world doesn't work in categories the way ours does. And once you see it, it changes everything. 1. Your cat doesn't think in species, they think in signals. Let's start with something most people miss. We think in labels: human, dog, cat, furniture, enemy, friend. Cats don't do that. A cat's brain is built around patterns and signals, not categories. So instead of thinking, this is a human, your cat is closer to thinking, this is a large, consistent presence that moves in predictable ways and sometimes produces food. Think about that for a second. To your cat, you're not defined by what you are. You're defined by what you do repeatedly, how you walk, when you feed them, how your voice sounds at different times, even how you open doors. So when people ask, does my cat think I'm a human? The more accurate answer is, your cat doesn't spend energy labeling you at all. They're too busy mapping your behavior. And that becomes important when we look at how they actually bond. Because it's not based on identity, it's based on consistency. And that leads to something even more interesting. 2. You are a moving part of their environment. Here's a perspective shift that surprises a lot of people. To your cat, you are not separate from the environment. You are part of it, like furniture that occasionally opens the fridge, or a warm object that changes location throughout the day. That's why your cat can act so casual around you one moment, and intensely observant the next. They're not switching between love and no love. They're responding to how predictable or readable you are in that moment. Think about when your cat follows you into the bathroom. It's not emotional panic. It's not obsession. It's observation. From their perspective, you entered a small room. I will also enter. This is normal environmental tracking. You're not being followed as a person. You're being tracked as a relevant moving feature in their world. And that difference explains a lot of their behavior that feels personal, but isn't human-centered at all. But now, here's where it gets even more interesting. Because sometimes they treat you as if you're part of their social group. Not human, not cat. Something else entirely. 3. Social bonding without labels. Cats absolutely form bonds. That part is not a myth. But those bonds don't require the idea of what you are. Instead, they're built through familiarity and emotional safety. Your voice becomes a safe signal. Your presence becomes predictable territory. Your routines become environmental anchors. So when your cat rubs against you, it's not saying, you are human and I love you. It's saying, you are familiar, you are safe, you belong in my mapped world. Think about slow blinking. That's not a human gesture. That's a low-risk communication signal. It's your cat saying, no threat detected. And if you return it, they sometimes respond in kind. Not because you're speaking cat language perfectly, but because you're participating in a shared system of calm signals. And that's the real key. Your cat doesn't need to understand you as human. They just need you to be consistent enough to remain safe in their mental map of the world. Which is why those moments, when your cat just sits there, staring at you like something isn't adding up, feel so strange. Because if everything is based on familiarity, what are they actually doing in that moment? If you've ever tried to make sense of that, you're not alone. And that's exactly where this starts to get interesting. 4. Why your cat watches you like that. Let's talk about the staring, that long, quiet, unblinking observation. Most people assume it's affection, or judgment, or sometimes just emptiness. But from a cat's perspective, staring is information gathering. They're constantly updating a model of where you are, what you're about to do, whether your behavior is normal. Because in their world, predictability equals safety. So when you stand up suddenly, they notice. When you change your routine, they register it. When you act differently than usual, they recalibrate. That stare isn't emotional, it's analytical. And sometimes when they stare at you for a long time, they're not focusing on you as a person. They're focusing on what you represent in that moment. Movement potential, food possibility, or environmental change, which leads to something people often misinterpret. When your cat suddenly leaves the room after staring, it's not rejection, it's processing complete. And this brings us to another misunderstood behavior. 5. Why your cat follows you but doesn't always interact. You walk to the kitchen, they follow. You sit down, they sit nearby. You move again, they reposition. But they don't always want attention. This confuses people because we assume following equals affection. But for cats, following is often just spatial awareness maintenance. You are a moving reference point in their environment. If you change location, they update their position relative to you. Not emotionally, structurally. It's like keeping a map updated in real time. But here's the subtle part. When they choose to stay close, even when they don't need to, that's when trust shows up. Not in big gestures, in unnecessary proximity. And if you've ever had your cat just quietly sit in the same room without asking for anything, that's not boredom, that's comfort without demand. Which brings us to something even deeper. 6. Your cat doesn't need to understand you to trust you. This is where everything comes together. We assume understanding must come first. But cats don't work that way. They don't need to fully comprehend what you are. They only need to learn. You are predictable. You are non-threatening. You are consistent. That's enough for trust. So when people say, "My cat doesn't act like they know I'm human," that's actually the point. Because in their system, human is irrelevant. What matters is, are you safe to map into my world? And if the answer is yes, you become part of their daily mental geography. Not as a species, not as a label, but as a stable presence in their environment. And that's why your cat can act distant one moment and quietly loyal the next. Not because they're conflicted, but because they're not thinking in the same framework we are. So think back to that moment at the beginning. Your cat staring at you, following you, sitting nearby like they're quietly logging information no one asked them to collect. At first, it feels mysterious, maybe even a little impersonal. But now it makes more sense. Because your cat isn't trying to figure out what you are. They've already solved that problem in their own way. You are a constant, a predictable presence, a moving part of their world that, over time, became safe enough to rely on. And that's the part most people miss. Cats don't need human-like understanding to form real bonds. They just need stability in a world they're constantly monitoring. So no, your cat doesn't see you as human in the way you think. They see you as something simpler, something quieter, something that belongs. All right, I've gotta go. My cat just sat on my laptop like I'm an optional feature in this household. FurEver.